And from what happens then a few months later, in June 2008, is that a truce is agreed between Hamas and Israel. Hamas had already unilaterally granted several truces. Here, this was a truce agreed between Israel and Hamas in June 2008. The terms of which were that Hamas would no longer fire rockets and Israel would lift the blockade that it had imposed since the Hamas's victory in January 2006. Israel broke the terms of that truce. There's no question about that. Israel did not lift the blockade, continued to constrict the people of Gaza with its military cordon, tightened, even tighter than ever, and then it staged a deliberate provocation in November last year, November 2008, on the evening of November the 4th, when the world was watching the results of the US presidential elections. Israel launched an air assault, killed 6 Hamas activists, using an excuse that they were trying to dig a tunnel. And of course, these tunnels are absolutely essential. The tunnels that link Gaza to Egypt, they are a kind of lifeline to which the Gazans attempt to overcome the Israeli blockade. Anyway, Israel claimed that the 6 activists who were trying to build the tunnel, they launched a rocket, killed 6 Hamas activists, as a result of which Hamas began firing rockets again. A few weeks of that, and Israel had its excuse to launch the brutal, massive aerial bombardment of Gaza on December 27th. And really, it's hard to believe the kind of sadism of the Israeli army, and the kind of horror stories that emerged from those 3 weeks. Far from confining their attacks to military targets, they attacked civilian targets. They tried to kill as many civilians as possible. They executed Palestinian parents in front of their children. They even went to the zoo, the Gaza zoo, and killed a number of animals in the zoo. Presumably the animals were also firing rockets. And really, see, this is, I think, there's nothing new about Israel's extreme violence towards the Palestinian people, or indeed towards the Arab people in general. The bombardment of Lebanon in the summer of 2006, you see, just to say that Hezbollah, which is the Islamic resistance movement in Lebanon, they kind of joined in, as it were, in the summer of 2006, when Israel was trying to provoke Hamas at that time, killing scores of Palestinian civilians. So Hamas joined the fray. Israel responded with a massive bombardment of Lebanon, killing again some 1,700 Lebanese, but except that they got a bloody nose. Hamas itself was not, Hezbollah itself was not defeated, and Israel suffered the worst military setback in its history since 1948. The Israeli Air Force killed 1,700 or 2,000 Lebanese civilians. If you go back to 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon, because at that time that's when the PLO was based in Beirut, Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982 in order to neutralize the PLO. At that point, they were living in Beirut, and then there was a brutal bombardment of Beirut and its suburbs. Israeli Air Force killed some 20,000 Lebanese civilians and Palestinians living in the refugee camps. The Israelis organized the slaughter by the right-wing Lebanese militia, the Phalangists. They organized the slaughter of the Palestinian refugees in the Sabra Shatila camps. Some 2,000 Palestinian refugees were killed by the Phalangists, who were allied to Israel at that point. So there was nothing new in this extreme violence demonstrated towards the people of Palestine. And indeed, if you go back to 1948, what you see is the founding, the year the State of Israel was founded, you see that the Palestinian, the Zionist movement, as it then was, people know what the word Zionism means. It's the movement that says that, that Israel has to be the location for a Jewish state, which will welcome in all the Jews from all over the world as a kind of safe haven from anti-Semitism. But in November 1947, the United Nations, the instigation of the United States and the West, put forward a partition plan by which Palestine, as it still was then, was to be partitioned into a Palestinian state and a Jewish state. Now this was completely outrageous because the Palestinians outnumbered the Jewish settlers at that time by 2 to 1. Palestinians were 1 million, the Jewish settlers and refugees from Europe were some 600,000, so nearly 2 to 1 majority of Palestinians over Jewish settlers. But the United Nations, in its wisdom, allocated 55% of the land of Palestine to the Jewish state and 45% to the Palestinian Arab state. It's completely ridiculous, and no wonder the Palestinians rejected it. But no sooner was the ink dry on the United Nations partition plan than the Zionist militia, even before the State of Israel was set up, began its program of ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. And in the course of 18 months, some 750,000 Palestinians were forcibly ejected from their villages, their land and their homes, and forced to seek refuge in refugee camps where the descendants live to this day. So some 3/4 of the Palestinian people were ethnically cleansed, and although of course Israelis and Zionist apologists claim that Israel was defending itself against invading Arab armies. Arab armies did invade Israel, but only after the State of Israel was declared in May 1948, and in response to the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. But again, contrary to the official version, the official Western version, that portrays Israel as a David standing up to an Arab Goliath, the truth is the exact opposite. That the Arab armies that invaded were actually smaller in number than the Zionist militia. They were poorly armed. They were no match, in fact, for the Zionist militia, which defeated them militarily by the beginning of 1949. So in fact, it was the Palestinians and the Arab armies that were the David and Israel, the Zionist militia that were the Goliath. In 1967, as you see here from these 4 maps, Israel has progressively usurped more and more Palestinian land. In 1967, of course, they invaded the West Bank and Gaza, which under the settlement of 1940, of the armistice, under the armistice of 1949, the West Bank was taken over by Jordan, the Gaza Strip by Egypt. In the 1967 war, Israel attacked the Jordanians and Egyptians, and indeed it won a staggering victory over 6 Arab armies in 6 days. It was a staggering military victory on the part of a highly sophisticated, armed to the teeth Israeli army and air force. But they defeated the Jordanians in the West Bank, occupied the West Bank, similarly defeated the Egyptians and took over the Gaza Strip. And since 1977, of course, since 1967, they've been gradually colonizing increasing number of areas in the West Bank in particular. In 1967, you have the infamous treaty that Israel signed with Egypt. Egypt made its peace with Israel, and that peace, a lot of people said, oh, isn't that marvelous? The Egyptians have made peace with Israel. In reality, it was a betrayal by the Egyptian government at that time a betrayal of the Palestinian people, as a result of which the process of colonization by illegal Israeli settlers intensified and accelerated enormously.